A nearly 24-hour standoff in College Station. We have been on scene all day and have the latest on the situation. Plus, the Brazos Valley needs your help giving foster kids a home. We have the details.
And we are looking at mostly cloudy skies. That's kept temperatures down today. It won't last, but it's not going to get too terribly hot. Your 25 news starts right now.
Breaking news this evening, the over 24-hour-long standoff in the 2500 block of Cypress Road in College Station is over. At 5:20 p.m., law enforcement entered the home with the barricaded subject. Officials say they made contact with the residents, a parent and a child inside. Police say both the parent, the child, and all of the officers involved are okay. It's still unclear if any arrest will be made. We currently have a crew at the scene and are working to learn more information. We will continue to keep you updated on air and online. Governor Abbott says he will convene a second special legislative session at noon this Saturday. The first session is set to expire tomorrow. More than 50 Democratic lawmakers remain in Washington, D.C. in order to break quorum for the first session. No word yet on when they plan to return to the state capitol. Included in the second special legislative session are 17 agenda items. The governor says bail reform and election integrity will be included. Also included hot topics such as critical race theory and abortion-inducing drugs. Transgender youth sports and the 13th check for retired teachers will also be brought to the session. And finally, the special session will discuss, quote, legislation relating to legislative quorum requirements. The February freeze threatened the collapse of the Texas power grid, and when generators couldn't make enough electricity to meet demand, power prices were raised. Tonight, Krhd News investigator Dennis Turner takes us to the Texas town that suffered the most damage and where many people don't have the ability to pay their huge bills.
I thought there was an explosion outside, and I came out and I was just stunned. And then the rest of the stuff just started falling. It was just crazy.
Those of us who experienced our first bad ice storm this year may never forget the crashing tree limbs that sounded like bombs. Lisa Adams says it turned the little town of Holland into something like a war zone.
They just kept falling. You couldn't walk down the stairs. There was trees everywhere. I mean, everywhere.
Power stayed off more than a week. People here waited for help from the government, which came slowly, or not at all. So people here stepped up and helped each other. They'd put out a call on social media, and before you knew it, around came neighbors to clean up and repair. Lisa got help cleaning up from a neighbor with heavy equipment. She put out a word of thanks, but to this day she remains hurt that Texas, her lifelong home, had failed her. Insult turned to injury when she got her power bill.
My bill is usually about $186, depending on how we use the air conditioner or the heater. And it ended up being $406, and I wasn't really prepared to pay $406.
The stories about the high bills here eventually faded into a background hum as folks continued waiting for help with that problem. Those huge price increases ERCOT ordered to coax more juice into the electric grid. They didn't just hit people in the big cities. They also hit people in towns like Holland, people without the income to pay for those bills. They waited for help here because the governor himself said help would come.
Texans who have suffered through days of freezing cold without power should not be subjected to skyrocketing energy bills due to a spike in the energy market.
Unfortunately, the message of help fell on deaf ears in the New York financial markets. After years of losses from junk bonds, savings and loans, and bad mortgages, investors said the losses had to stop. And they stopped with Texas. Governor Abbott dispatched his only remaining public utilities commissioner to Wall Street to reassure investors they'd keep the fortune they made from Texas throwing money at power companies for just a little more juice. Are you worried about the fact that the governor chose the bond market over consumers?
Yeah, we're the ones who pay his salary.
In Europe, the Dutch finally tamed the North Sea and reclaimed valuable land. But in this Holland, Texas said it would go Dutch, leaving everybody on their own. The state did, though, create a mechanism where power companies could borrow money and pass the cost to consumers over time. No amount of windmills could hold back the North Sea of debt some would take on here. Yeah, but these were supposed to be paper losses. These were supposed to be easy to account for, but Wall Street doesn't seem to want paper losses anymore.
In Texas, We tend to have government that helps businesses and doesn't help consumers. You know, it's a failing, I think, and it's one that we've got to take a harder look at.
Krhd Castaneda, an engineer and attorney working in the energy business, points out while the bond market provides the fuel for the Texas economic miracle, people actually make it happen.
While each of us may be an employee of a business, we're also consumers, and we got to balance all of what needs to function here in our Texas economy.
Maybe that's why people here shrugged or yawned at ERCOT's fixer-upper plan, because any fix now comes too late for them and the hundreds who died in the cold.
It was horrible. It was simply horrible.
And besides, most here doubt it'll fix anything.
ERCOT released a plan saying, here's how we fixed things. Do you trust him?
Absolutely not.
Because?
Because he didn't do anything for us out here.
Like their counterparts across the sea, the Dutch of Holland, Texas, learned the best help comes from your neighbor and not from a Capitol building.
The community did this. There were people everywhere who could drive a truck, had a chainsaw with a trailer, cleaning up everybody's property.
Some here say they'll plan for next winter, almost as if neither ERCOT nor the governor ever existed. In Holland, Dennis Turner, 25 News.
The Biden administration is working to require foreign visitors to be vaccinated for COVID-19. A White House official says this is part of the administration's plan to ease travel restrictions. Right now, all travelers to the U.S. must show proof of a negative test taken within 3 days of their flight. The Biden administration has faced growing pressure to lift some restrictions on air travel. Moderna says its COVID vaccine is 93% effective 6 months after the second dose. This makes Moderna's vaccine more effective than Pfizer's, which wanes in efficacy every 2 months. Still, Moderna warns there are concerns about breakthrough infections involving the Delta variant. It also says a booster will be necessary as the winter season approaches and antibodies wane. And the World Health Organization is calling on countries to hold off on booster shots for now. But a handful of countries still plan on administering boosters soon. French President Emmanuel Macron said today the country will move forward in offering a third dose of the vaccine to vulnerable people. Germany will follow the same plan in September. The UK also plans on offering a third shot to people over 50 years old. Meanwhile, another reason to get your flu shot this year, researchers say it may help if you become infected with COVID-19. Research shows that people who have the flu shot are less likely to suffer a severe COVID infection later on. Scientists looked at hospitalizations from several countries and found those who had the flu shot in the past 6 months were less likely to end up in the ER. Officials in the Brazos Valley say they are in need of foster families to help with a growing number of foster children. As Krhd reporter Rachel Espaillat shows us, they're working to alleviate the problem.
An office of only 2, America's Heart Inc. staff in Bryan are constantly trying to find homes for thousands of foster children in the Lone Star State.
The numbers are increasing every day. We're getting more calls every day. And so the need is just heightening for people to open their hearts and homes to these kiddos.
America's Heart, this is Amelia. We're at a capacity crisis in Texas right now. We don't have enough foster homes for the amount of children needing them.
As of June 2021, the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services reports nearly 30,000 children are in need of a foster family in the state of Texas. About 500 of those children are in Brazos County.
We really emphasize the fact that when you're fostering, you're allowing these kids a second chance to receive love and attention that maybe they didn't get from a previous home.
Case manager Amelia Koontz says the pandemic and people's preference for who to foster makes it harder to match families, while Claire Hohardt, the foster home developer, says it's even harder for older teens.
When you're closer to 18, that's when they're getting closer to aging out of the system. So now more than ever, they need that support and that love and that attention.
Not knowing if and when there will be enough parents to pair kids in the foster care system, staff focus on the difference made each time there is a successful match.
And the smiles not only on the kids' faces, but on the parents' faces too, because they found that missing piece and they're completed in a way that they didn't even know that they could be before.
If you are interested in fostering, you can be paired with a child in as soon as 3 months. In Bryan, Rachel Espaillat, KRHD News.
A new agreement signed by Blinn College and Texas A&M University leadership today will be making life easier for transfer students majoring in agricultural and life sciences. The new partnership between Blinn College and College District and A&M's College of Agriculture and Life Sciences aims to provide seamless pathways towards bachelor degrees for freshman and sophomore Blinn students intending to transfer to A&M for their upperclassmen years.
Right, so that a student can come to Blinn and experience an affordable tuition rate and complete their basics with their freshman and sophomore level at Blinn, and then transfer directly in a seamless pathway into the Texas A&M University Agricultural and Sciences Department. There they would be a junior or a senior.
With the partnership now in place, students studying agriculture, economics, bioenvironmental sciences, poultry science, plant and environmental soil science, and horticulture will have a seamless transition when transferring from Blinn to A&M.
Businesses have struggled to fill millions of open positions. The news feed starts with signs that things are starting to pick up. U.S. jobless claims right now are around 385,000. You compare that to the number at the start of the year, which was around 900,000. Now, as COVID cases rise, there are some questions about how strong the vaccines are and how long they last. Moderna saying today that its vaccine is still 93% effective as many as 6 months after you get your second shot. The company did admit that there are concerns the Delta variant will lead to more breakthrough infections. Now, if you got your flu shot, you could be doing yourself a favor when it comes to COVID-19. There's new research that says if you got your flu shot this year, you may be less likely to suffer a severe COVID infection down the road. Researchers looked at hospitalizations from several countries, including the U.S., and found that those who had the flu shot in the past 6 months were less likely to go to the ER for COVID. Now, benefits typically only given to white-collar workers are becoming available for more blue-collar employees. We're taking a look at those issues, including retirement plans, why experts believe that this isn't just a short-term plan to attract workers.
Things could be getting a lot busier on Brazos County roadways soon. A unanimous U.S. Senate vote pushing through a plan to expand I-14 from Midland, Texas to Augusta, Georgia. The 5-state plan will cross over 1,300 miles. The amendment will be part of the new infrastructure bill on Capitol Hill. Senator Ted Cruz calling the expansion a win for Texas. And the process of passing the bipartisan infrastructure bill continues in the United States Senate. Included in the bill, a historic amount of new funding for trains and mass transit around the country. Our Joe St. George speaks with experts who say some parts of the legislation are truly transformational, while other parts may not provide what's needed. First Alert Chief Meteorologist Matt Hines is here with a look.
And we've seen some clouds roll on into the area, and you can see right now that we do have those clouds working their way across the Brazos Valley. There have been a couple of sprinkles here and there, but other than that, the majority of the rain stayed back near the San Antonio and Austin areas, and it really died out as it made its way toward Bryan College Station. But it did provide that cloud cover, keeping a lot of us in the 80s this afternoon. How about that? And as we check out what's going on across the state, there's another weak system blowing across Oklahoma, far north Texas. I think all that stays away from us as of now. So we're kind of stuck in the middle between two systems here and didn't get a lot of rain out of this. And there still could be an isolated shower or storm as we make our way through the overnight hours tonight and into Friday. But the key word is going to be isolated here, about 20%. Then as we get here to Friday afternoon, again, you can see an isolated popcorn pop-up thunderstorm here or there. But that is probably going to be leaving us as we reach sunset tomorrow night. So your Friday evening plan's looking pretty good. Then as we get into Saturday, again, this is showing at least an isolated storm threat. I'm going to call it a less than 20% chance of rain, as it appears that a lot of it will probably be just south of the Brazos Valley. And as we check out temperatures for tonight, into the low to mid 70s out there. We'll go 72 in Hearne, 74 Bryan College Station, and 72 in Navasota. Then tomorrow, high temperatures will make it up into the 90s. We'll go about 93 degrees in Bryan College Station. And of course, it'll feel a little warmer when you factor in that humidity, but all this is still below normal for this time of year. And looking at your forecast, 93 up to 95 degrees Friday into Saturday with partly cloudy skies over the weekend. We'll go as high as 97 here. Then as we get into next week, lots of 96 and 97s, and we may see an isolated thunderstorm here or there, especially by the end of the week on into the next weekend.
We've seen over particularly the last 6 months is the white collarization of blue collar. So what that means is a lot of benefits that have typically been associated with white collar workers are now starting to be offered to blue collar and hourly workers.
Those benefits include debt-free education, tuition reimbursement, mental health support, maternity and paternity leave, even retirement plans and 401k matches. Matthew Stevenson with Snagajob, which is a site for hourly workers, says less than 10% of companies are offering retirement benefits and 401k matching for hourly workers. But he says the number of companies offering the benefits has been growing in the last year. Big names like Starbucks, Shake Shack, Panda Express, Target, and Walmart. Now, he believes the pandemic has made workers more willing to ask for these benefits and even expect them.
Even though these may be a way to, attract the best workers in the current environment, the reality is the actual ROI is there that they're going to keep doing this even after the pandemic. And I think that's an incredibly positive development, in blue collar and in hourly work more broadly.
Now, he says that Chipotle is seeing this return on investment. It was one of the first to implement tuition reimbursement and 401k matching. Now, they're retaining more workers and more workers are going into management roles. $15 an hour is also becoming the norm for service workers. Stevenson says more companies will have to offer this higher pay to stay competitive. Now, meanwhile, seafood companies are struggling to hire enough workers to meet customer demand, but tactics to get and retain employees just has not been working.
We'll start people out at a really good pay, a really good hourly pay, and in a week or two they quit, and we're like, what's going on? And it's very hard to replace them.
People want to work in different industries, cleaner industries, and it's a challenge to attract people to work in the shrimp processing plant.
Now, current seafood workers say they have been working long hours to try and offset this shortage. The FAA is now calling on airports to crack down on alcohol sales. In a letter, the agency says many recent incidents of unruly passengers involved intoxication. Many airport restaurants have been selling those to-go drinks because of the pandemic, but the FAA says, well, people can't bring their own alcohol on board, but many people are getting on planes with those to-go containers. The agency wants airports to take the lead in stopping this. Small businesses are learning about an unintentional consequence of the first COVID relief legislation. The bill changed how over-the-counter drugs are regulated. It added a new fee of $20,000 a year for the companies making these products. The fee was about $1,000 before. Now, this is a big blow to small companies, places like Pacific Beach Organics, which makes organic, more environmentally friendly skincare products.
We're looking at the CARES Act as something that was intended to help people. We can't believe that this is the very thing that has caused us to consider closing up shop.
The $20,000 fee is the same regardless of how large a company is. New legislation would be required to reduce the fee for smaller businesses. All right, let's turn to the news feed, and it starts with quite a warning from Dr. Anthony Fauci. He says if the U.S. does not get control over the spread of the Delta variant, you can expect stronger variants will come next. Right now, around 70% of the U.S., as far as adults, have at least one COVID shot, and Fauci says that's just not enough. Now, those entering the U.S. may soon need the COVID vaccine. The Biden administration is taking steps towards requiring that for foreign visitors. No timelines have been set, though. White House has been looking at loosening some travel restrictions. The CDC says there is promise when it comes to racial equity in the rollout of the vaccine. Over the past 2 weeks, a larger share of people of color have been vaccinated with the first dose compared to white people. Now, the numbers are based on around 60% of the U.S. population where race and ethnicity is tracked. Well, first we told you about the bike shortage that left some store aisles bare, and now demand for electric bikes is making them harder to come by. Tomorrow, how much they could cost you and a tip on why you might want to wait to save some big bucks. But still to come today, as conversations about police reform continue, we are getting into an effort to get kids interested in the career earlier. Many people in law enforcement left the job after a year of COVID, protests, and increased crime. But many departments were having staffing issues even before that. Data from the International Association of Chiefs of Police show that in 2019, nearly 80% of agencies said that they had trouble recruiting qualified candidates. 65% reported not enough people were applying. Half said they had to change agency policies to draw in more qualified applicants. But as the country works on police reform, one program is working to educate kids on law enforcement policies and to better prepare them if they choose a career in the field.
We focus a lot on just career readiness skills, from collaborating and communicating to critical thinking. And so all of that is woven in to our projects. And then in addition, just a hands-on experience from internships and job shadowing. And, you know, our kids are going into a variety of pathways. They can go straight into the workforce. We want to prepare them for that, or to the police academy, or if they want to pursue a 4-year degree, they'll be ready to do that as well.
The Destinations Career Academy of Colorado is a K-12 program through Krhd. They provided us the video you're looking at right here. Students get to hear regularly from experts in the field like FBI agents, lawyers, and judges. Beth Vasquez says social justice movements grow and conversations continue on police reform, and more students are showing interest in her classes.
They're very aware of the realities and what's going on, and a lot of them want to learn more about it, and they also want to make a difference. So my numbers continue to increase.
Now, she says that includes diverse populations, and guest speakers are chosen to represent that. Right now, Krhd only offers its law enforcement program in Colorado, Pennsylvania, and Indiana, but it does have plans to expand this school year. One of the largest school districts in the country will be requiring students and staff to do weekly COVID testing. That's regardless of vaccination status. Why doctors say these testing programs will be so essential this fall.
Texas A&M's prestige when it comes to atmospheric science has landed them a major partnership for how we forecast climate change. 25 News reporter Caleb Chevalier with her sister station KXXV explains how a major part of NOAA's climate studies will now be centered at the university.
Climate science has become an increasingly relevant sphere, and now Texas A&M can claim one of the nation's top climate institutions. The university is the new home of the Southern Regional Climate Center, or SRCC. One of only 6 in the nation, the SRCC oversees Texas as well as some states in the Deep South. The center is used to manage and deliver climate data at the state and local level. Professor John Nielsen Gammon says the center helps community leaders take appropriate action for their city's weather and climate-related decisions. Current SRCC projects include better drought monitoring and providing solutions for transportation during inclement weather.
We're providing climate services. Climate services is not just talking about climate change, it's talking about risks of severe weather. It's talking about what actually happened when something went wrong. It's all sorts of stuff, and we cover the whole range of it.
Texas A&M beat out LSU for the contract bid, moving the Climate Center to Texas. They officially assumed the duties in May. And coming up at 6, we'll speak more with Nielsen Gammon about how the addition of the SRCC may lead to new partnerships in the university's future.
Football is back tonight as the Cowboys take on the Steelers in the NFL Pro Football Hall of Fame game. WTAW's Zach Taylor joins us now with more.
Here's your 25 Sports Update with WTAW's Zach Taylor.
Hey KRHD viewers, Texas A&M heptathlete Annie Koontz finished in 6th place at the women's heptathlon earlier today in Tokyo. Elsewhere, U.S. women's soccer nabbed the bronze medal with a 4-3 victory over Australia. Men's basketball advanced to the gold medal game after rolling past the Aussies 97-78, and baseball topped Korea 7-2 to reach the title game. Now, the U.S. currently leads in the total medal count with 91, but trails China in gold medals with 34-29. The Brazos Valley Bombers saw their season come to an end last night, falling to San Antonio 4-2 in Game 2 of their first-round TCL playoff series. In the big leagues, the Texas Rangers couldn't get past the LA Angels this afternoon, 5-0. Meanwhile, tonight, the Houston Astros return home to host the Minnesota Twins at 7:10. Now, speaking of the Stros, former pitching great J.R. Richard has passed away at age 71. Richard played for Houston from 1971 to 1980 before suffering a career-ending stroke. The NFL preseason officially kicks off tonight with the Dallas Cowboys and Pittsburgh Steelers in the Hall of Fame game. Kickoff is at 7 o'clock in Canton, Ohio. From the WTAW Sports Studio, I'm Zach Taylor.
I think we're not going to have all the measures in place that we need by a long shot when the school year starts.
As millions of students head back to school, policies aimed at keeping them safe are evolving. One of the nation's largest districts has announced some of the strictest policies yet. They're testing every student once a week. As COVID cases rise, health experts tell Amanda Brandeis that schools should be prepared to adapt in the coming months.
So what you're going to do is line them next to each other.
My name is Gina Demerchian, mother of 2 daughters.
When I met Gina in April, she was unapologetically
Thrilled.
Summer break was just weeks away, but her kids would finish the year inside a classroom.
You go in and they scan this, and then they take the temperature.
That meant daily health screenings, mandatory masking, and weekly COVID tests.
It was completely worth it. The last few weeks of school, it was back to, like, in no time, it was the girl drama, the friends, she said and he said.
5th grade moments missed from a year online.
Oh, they were missing human beings, little kids their age.
Infection rates in the U.S. were going down. By June, the average number of new cases was just over 13,000 a day.
We ended up taking a trip over the summer. In the grocery store, you walk in, you're feeling better, and you're like, okay, everything's getting back to normal.
But normal was knocked off course. Case rates now reaching milestones in the wrong direction.
It's good to be cautious, but it was 1 step forward and 2 steps back.
The nation's 2nd largest school district, Los Angeles Unified, now changing course. All students and staff will undergo weekly COVID testing, regardless of vaccination status.
It's for the safety of everyone. I get that. Do I think that they need to do it every week? Probably not.
Roughly 100,000 tests will be given each day.
I think that there's not one right answer to the question of how often to test and how to organize a testing program. And I think that the most important thing is that there is a testing program and that it works.
Dr. Yana Broadhurst is leading a pilot project in Omaha, Nebraska public schools.
So it's just using a small straw to provide a couple of drops of saliva into a tube.
Last November, they began screening students and staff without symptoms weekly.
We saw a 2.5-fold increase in staff cases detected, and we saw nearly 6-fold increase in student cases detected.
She says weekly testing is ideal for detecting cases and preventing transmission, especially as some districts remove safety measures like masking.
Those decisions were made when we were in a period of complacency over the summer. Just really inspired that LA is making, the hard decisions that it's making. So many school districts haven't.
While an infected person may have once spread the virus to 2 or 3 others, she expects it'll be 6 to 8 in the coming months.
We are facing a more challenging scenario than we have faced yet, but we know we have the tools to address this effectively.
In Los Angeles,
and we just have to use them.
I'm Amanda Brandeis reporting.
All right, Amanda, thank you. Now, things are changing as the Delta variant spreads throughout the country. Mask wearing rules are becoming common again, but still many people may not want to wear one. Some may feel unsafe being around others if they're not wearing a mask, but at the same time, it can be difficult to persuade people to do it. Lauren Nordegren has researched how psychology affects our actions. Now, he says that evidence and facts won't actually work when we're trying to persuade people about certain subjects.
People don't want to feel like they're being pushed. And so however you communicate information, just know if your approach is to push people with facts, with evidence, with shame, the harder you push, the harder they will push back.
Now, he says we're better off affirming their control and freedom. Now, in the case of masks, you can say you understand their personal choice, but you'd appreciate it if they wore a mask during the time that you are together.
What you're doing in those opening statements is you are reaffirming people's freedom. And the more you reaffirm their freedom, the less defensive they're going to be in their reaction.
Now, when it comes to vaccines, he says that people who are unvaccinated aren't necessarily against them. Many people have concerns about the vaccine, or there's just too much inconvenience in trying to get one. Now, in this case, he says accessibility needs to be improved, and that could be done by bringing vaccine clinics to certain places, creating reminders, or even giving people time off to get vaccinated. Postpartum depression is generally associated with new moms.
There is a stigma in general on the mental health of men and fathers, and it's really not talked about.
How a first-of-its-kind pilot is helping new dads get the support they need as well.
First Alert Chief Meteorologist Matt Hines is standing by.
And we are seeing the clouds have taken over here across the area, and we will continue with partly to mostly cloudy skies as we move into Friday morning here. And as we get closer to your weekend by Friday afternoon, maybe an isolated pop-up thunderstorm, but most of us will likely be dry. And again, temperatures will be below normal, low to mid 90s across the area. We get into Saturday, we'll start off with some clouds here in the morning, but during the afternoon, I think most of us will be dry. This is still showing the potential of an isolated storm or two. I think rain chance will be less than 20%. So I'll keep it out of the forecast for now. If we need to reevaluate that, we can do that on Friday. But again, it does appear that we're going to be seeing some pretty decent weather for this time of year. Tonight's going to be okay. We should make it down into the low to mid 70s across the region with the cloud cover. That really helped keep temperatures down today. That'll break up a little bit tomorrow, so we should make it back into the 90s, right around 90 to 93 degrees for a lot of us. And with the humidity, it'll feel like the mid to upper 90s. But this time of year, it can feel like it's well over 100. It can be in the 100s. So we're still looking pretty nice comparatively where it could be. And as we check out your forecasts, those temperatures right around 93, pushing 95 here on Saturday. As we make our way into Sunday, about 97 degrees. Then we'll keep those mid and upper 90s as we head into next week. Maybe an isolated thunderstorm threat middle of the week and late next week as well. But as of right now, it does appear that it will be on the 20% order here, and lows at night will continue their trek through the 70s. So very normal weather for this time of year.
New partnerships to encourage vaccinating children for COVID-19 are coming from the White House today. The administration's working with the American Academy of Pediatrics, the National Parent-Teacher Association, and other groups. Pediatricians will join back-to-school events, and vaccines will be offered during sports physicals, and additional money will go towards hosting pop-up vaccine clinics with schools. Now, the CDC has updated safety data on the Pfizer vaccine among nearly 9 million vaccinated children. 1 out of every 1,000 vaccinated adolescents reported reactions, more so after the second dose. 90% were for non-serious issues like injection, site irritation, fainting, nausea, headache, and fever. These are common after other vaccinations. Fewer than 1% required medical care, and even fewer were hospitalized. Myocarditis, or heart inflammation, is still extremely rare, and no deaths were associated with it.
The fact that we even are aware that there is this potentially rare side effect from the vaccine is a testament to the safety of our systems.
The head doctor of the American Academy of Pediatrics is also trying to get reliable vaccine information out to parents. The group reported new infection cases among children nearly doubled the last week of July from the week prior. Hospitalizations and death are still less common with children, but are increasing.
And if you're the parent of a child who's gotten sick, you know, those risk numbers don't mean anything to you because you want your child healthy and well.
The return to school masking divide is also adding to pediatricians and parents' concerns. Not even half of the largest school districts in the country are mandating masks. In one Arkansas school district, more than 700 people are quarantined with nearly 50 positive cases in the first week of school. The superintendent told local media had they had the same masking rules in place as last year, fewer than 50 people would be quarantined.
Universal masking is yet another strategy to help make sure that we keep our school buildings safe and that we can keep them open for in-person learning for all of our kids.
Dr. Beer says that her teenage children are vaccinated. Parents can find reliable information on vaccines at getvaccineanswers.org and healthychildren.org. 13 million people in the United States are at risk of having their livelihoods altered by rising sea levels and climate change. Krhd shows us one innovative project that is working to address this while harnessing the power of the Mississippi River.
Beneath the surface, the earth churns. Nothing can slow the mighty Mississippi. The water between these banks pulls 500 million tons of mud from 30 states. Sediment travels 2,300 miles south and is deposited into the Gulf of Mexico with each passing year.
You are literally surrounded by, above, sometimes inundated by, unfortunately, water here. Yep.
As an engineer and resident of New Orleans, Brian Lazina has nothing but respect for this river, which helped create the state of Louisiana.
We weren't going to be able to do nothing, obviously. Change was coming.
But the Mississippi River Delta is disappearing. rising sea levels have been slowly eating away at the earth here.
It's all about keeping a map looking like South Louisiana in some form or fashion.
It turns out, though, you don't actually have to be on the Mississippi River to study how to fix it.
What we're looking at right here is represents about a 2.5 mile reach of the Mississippi River.
Some 1,200 miles to the north, tucked inside a warehouse in Massachusetts,
Ships haul barges up and downstream.
Andy Johansson and his team have managed to fit North America's second longest river into a warehouse the size of a football field.
In order to simulate the flow patterns correctly, you need to have the geometry scaled and matching as closely as possible.
Over the last few years, Andy and his team at Alden Labs have been using this lab to study a sediment diversion channel with the help of a dye bottle and food coloring.
Are you making an improvement? Is it getting worse? Is it getting better?
The team can control the velocity of the water and see how much sediment is naturally carried into the channel.
One of the benefits of the physical models is you're actually able to inject dye. You're actually able to observe, what's happening with the flow patterns.
Think of it like a dam, only instead of diverting water, they're diverting sediment or small grains of sand and earth.
This does not exist right now.
The idea is to move that sediment through a channel some 7 miles south into the mid-Barataria Bay, a section of the Mississippi Delta that was once all wetlands and is now just water because of rising sea levels, putting New Orleans and the entire state of Louisiana at risk.
So if we can do something and make a difference, have a positive influence on it, that's great.
The cost of the model was about $1.4 million. It's essentially giving engineers a dry run at constructing the $4 billion project here along the Mississippi. All of the money is coming from a settlement related to the Deepwater Horizon oil spill from back in 2015. In the first 50 years after it's built, the sediment diversion project could create or save as much as 47 square miles of land. While this project will help protect the city of New Orleans, this is not just a coastal Louisiana issue. As sea levels rise worldwide, sediment diversion is the kind of climate change management project communities nationwide are having to look at simply to survive.
What we can do now is not only harness the power of the river to build new land, but also sustain the wetlands that still exist.
Those who live at the mouth of the Mississippi know nothing can stop this river's fury. So instead of fighting it, they are harnessing the power of this unforgiving, unrelenting force of nature.
And this is not a small project, it's a landscape level project. It is intended to change the environment, so we take that responsibility strongly.
On the Mississippi River Delta, I'm Chris Compton.
Opioids are playing a significant role in treating pain. New data shows nearly a quarter of U.S. adults used a prescription opioid in the past 3 months when they were surveyed in 2019 by the National Center for Health Statistics. Researchers are concerned because prescription opioids can lead to misuse, addiction, even death. Now, there's been a scary recall for an item that is supposed to help you relax. Dollar General now recalling 155,000 of these True Living lounge chairs. They say that this chair can lead to finger pinching and lacerations, but they also say it could lead to the loss of fingers. So you can call Dollar General for a full refund. Now, those who experience pregnancy loss could soon receive 3 days of paid leave. The Support Through Loss Act, introduced in Congress, would provide 3 days of paid leave to employees for pregnancy bereavement. India, New Zealand, and Korea are some of the countries that already have similar laws in place. Now, we have long known that some women can experience postpartum depression, but there's growing recognition that new fathers can experience stress, anxiety, and even postpartum depression as well. Usher Qureshi looks at a first-of-its-kind pilot that aims to address the often overlooked mental health challenges that men face after the birth of a child.
Faster? All right, ready?
Nearly 3 years ago, Gabe and Raquel Cruz had their first child.
He's vibrant, he's loud, he loves adventure, he loves to jump around.
Watch your head.
But the joy of having little Jeremiah was quickly eclipsed for Raquel, who developed severe postpartum depression.
It was debilitating. I felt like I couldn't function at all. I just felt a lot of guilt for not feeling the joy and the happiness and the fairy tale. I felt like I was a failure as a mom and a woman and a wife.
You feel a little helpless. You can't help change her mood, no matter what you do.
Soon, Gabe himself began feeling the crushing weight of new fatherhood while trying to help his wife navigate her own stress.
There is a stigma in general on the mental health of men and fathers, and it's really not talked about.
While numerous studies have looked at risk factors, treatment, and the impact of postpartum depression in women, the condition is less understood in men.
Did you sense that Gabe was going through something as well?
To be honest with you, no, I didn't. I was like so caught up in my own survival that I didn't even, to be honest with you, think about what he was going through.
According to the American Medical Association, paternal postnatal depression affects up to 10% of men.
I think that there is growing recognition that depression among fathers is a thing.
Darius Tandon is an associate professor of medical social sciences at Northwestern University and corresponding author of a newly released Fathers and Babies study.
Our Fathers and Babies study is really an attempt to both improve the mental health of expecting fathers and new fathers.
The study and guide is among the first to tackle stress and mental health that fathers face after the birth of a child, rather than focusing on co-parenting interventions.
We really were trying to use tried and true cognitive behavioral techniques that we know are effective in preventing and treating depression, and really build an intervention that was focusing specifically on addressing the mental health of fathers.
The study's intervention provides new dads 3 months of weekly or biweekly sessions from an advisor to discuss 3 components: engaging in pleasant activities, identifying and reframing unhelpful thoughts, and building a strong support network.
I knew I was going through something, but the resources helped me vocalize it.
Raquel took part in a similar program for women. It's something that could become a model for mental health care providers across the country.
If we can go through this, we can go through anything, literally. If we can survive this darkness and not leave each other. There you are.
Together, the Cruzes learned to lean on each other, ask for help, and work through their darkest times, with joy on the other side.
Thanks for joining us for Krhd News at 6. Be sure to join us again later tonight for Krhd News at 10.